Hey, Seth here with the TBGPodcast. Now, what you're about to listen to is our third ever episode, and at the time of its recording, the website was not live. We did not have shirts available for purchase. However, we do now at the time of its uploading. So I'd like to invite you to go over to tobegotten.com and take a look. There's a number of shirts that are available for you. And on many of our shirts, we'll have a QR code, usually right here on the right arm. And the intention behind that QR code is to easily share the concepts behind the designs on the shirt. So if you have a shirt design on righteousness, for example, you'll be able to send people with that QR code to the website for resources on righteousness and the ideas and concepts behind the designs on the shirt. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this episode, and let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the TBG Podcast, where we talk about identity, who we are and who we're meant to be. Today's topic is on faith. We're going to be looking at the biblical definition of faith and how it contrasts with the traditional definition of faith. My name is Seth. I am a husband, a father, and an entrepreneur, and with me is my wife.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a wife, a mother, and finishing my master's in psychology.
And I'm just Kai.
All right, so faith. We thought this would follow up from our last podcast quite well. If you remember, we talked about creed or creeds, what they were, and why it's important to have them, and why it's important to know where you're getting your creed from. So we thought this would fit very well to follow that, because as you'll find out, creed or belief or believe and faith is all the same thing. So to jump right into it, I wanted to go over some of the Greek and Hebrew definitions in the original language, primarily taken from the King James, but that's just because it's closest to the original. And then actually look at some of those definitions and figure out, okay, how does the Bible define faith and how does it define belief, or things like I believe, and how that's all related. So if you look at primarily believe all through the Hebrew and through the Greek, a couple of the Hebrew, it basically all traces back to number 539 in the Strong's Concordance, and it means properly to build up or support, to foster as a parent or nurse, or figuratively to render firm or faithful. So that's where we immediately see, okay, there's something connected with faith, because the word that's translated believe is to render firm or faithful. So it's connected to faith somehow. It also means to trust or believe. And then this is where it gets, one of the places it gets interesting, to be permanent or quiet, or morally to be true or certain. So that's the definition of believe from the Hebrew word 539. In the Greek, there's multiple different words depending on which form of the word you're looking at, but basically all of them trace back to Greek 3982. And that one is also very interesting, because that definition is to convince or to assent. Let me see if I have a little bit more on that word here, because I thought I had a little more written down. It's a primary verb to convince by argument, whether true or false, by analogy to pacify or conciliate. I've also got passively to assent, to evidence or authority. So that's where all of the different words in Greek trace back to this word. Which is essentially to convince or to be convinced of by argument, to assent to something.
Can we maybe just take a moment to explain a bit where this came from? I think there might be some listeners out there who
don't know what
you're talking about, like
okay.
a G560 what? So where does that come from, and why?
Okay. So obviously the Bible was not written in English, right?
Yes.
English did not exist when the Bible was written. And so our English Bibles are obviously translated from the languages that the Bible were written in. Now, primarily, the Old Testament is written in Hebrew and Aramaic, and the New Testament is written primarily in Greek. And so there are many different tools. One of the best, I believe, is Strong's Concordance, which give you insight into what the original language means, or what the definitions are of the words. And so the Strong's Concordance is a tool that you can use to look up individual words that you find in the Bible and trace it back to the original language. And so that's what those numbers are tied to, is it's a way of referencing the original word with the translated word. And so when it's H539, that means in the Strong's Concordance, it's the Hebrew word number 539. So it's the 539th word in the Strong's Concordance in the Hebrew section. And so that's how you can find the definition of the original word. And it's really, really useful because, obviously when you read the English Bible, there are people who translated that read the original language, and then they translate it in their mind to a new language based on their understanding of the original language. And so the Strong's Concordance is a really useful tool because you have the actual definition of the actual original word in the original language. And so you can look at that and then compare it to the translation and be like, oh yeah, okay, I see it. Or hang on a second, like, why did they translate it this way? Because the primary definition of the original word is this, or something like that.
Right.
So, and then, G is just Greek. So that's where the numbers come from.
Perfect. I think that's a good summary.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, so in the Greek, maybe I should also expand on this a little bit. Just how we have various different forms of words like swim. We have swam. We have swimming. We have various different forms of the word. Swimmer, right. There's lots, obviously, different forms of words in the Greek as well. So that's what I'm saying. They all trace back to an original or a root word like swim. Swim is the root word of swimming, swimmer, all of those words. And so if you trace it back, you kind of get a really good idea at the core of what this concept is about. So that original word in the Greek, 3982, I forget exactly, was that the pistis one? I don't remember. Anyways,
Yeah, I think so.
I think it might have been the pistis one. Yeah, and that definition is kind of what we're talking about. It traces back to the idea of being convinced by argument, or being or assenting to evidence or authority. Mm-hmm. So when we really talk about when you read the word believe in the Bible or other forms of it, believer, believing, those kinds of things, that's kind of where it comes from. Right. Is this idea of being convinced by argument.
And they all distill down to convinced by argument.
That's right. In the Greek. The Hebrew has kind of the idea of it's a similar idea, to build up or support, and I think that kind of goes along with the idea of kind of convincing by argument. Like, you build up an idea, you underlay it with support for this concept or idea. But something else that is, like I said before, is very interesting about the Hebrew is it has the idea of being permanent, which I think is very important as we keep going through this idea. All right, so where are we at? Did you guys have any other thoughts,
comments on that so far? Does that sit well with you?
Doing great, guys.
Doing great. Okay, so I think another cool thing to look at is one of the forms of this word. I believe it's the form of believe in the Greek, is 544, and it's from a negative participle and 3982. So it's the idea of not being convinced, and it's the Greek definition is unpersuadable, or to disbelieve willfully and perversely.
And that's unbelieving.
That's unbelieving. Yeah, it's kind of a negative. And so what it really kind of comes down to, maybe we should do it this way. What do you guys, like, as you look back in your history of how, or your understanding as you grew up, how was the word believe, like, taught to you? Like, what did you think that word meant? Or even faith? Because that's really what we're talking about. Oh, maybe I should back up just a little bit. So another interesting thing is faith and believe in the Bible are the same words. Mm-hmm. They all trace back to these same words. There's not a different word in the Bible for faith and believe. You look up the word faith, you're traced back to the same numbers that mean the same things.
Yeah, and the only other language that I know of that we see that is in German as well.
Yeah.
Where
there's not a separate word.
Right. And really, at the core of it, the difference between faith and believe in the English language is the noun and the verb. So I believe that faith would be the noun, and then to believe would be the verb.
Right. But I think because of that, there's kind of a convolution and a misunderstanding about the words and their forms.
Right. So a lot of people use, I think, the word faith as a verb then.
I think they probably still use it as a noun. Like, I feel like a lot of the time when people say faith, they're talking about a religion, a system of beliefs.
Right. Okay.
Like, is it the Adventist faith? Is it the Mormon faith? Is it the Catholic faith? Right. That's I think a lot of the time the way people use faith. And then when you believe something, it's just kind of an intellectual, I believe this thing.
Yeah, and I think something that for myself growing up, I felt like faith came in when I didn't understand something. So like when I would be told like, well, you just have to have faith, you know, it's like
take it on faith
without
any evidence.
Right. Yeah, there was no way, like whoever was trying to, make me believe a thing, they didn't have any other argument to provide for my questions or whatever. And so then it was just chopped up to, well, now you need to we don't know, you just have to have faith. And so faith was the space holder for things that didn't make sense. I don't know.
How did you grow up believing what the word believe and faith meant?
I think two different ways. Just like Katie said, because preparing for this podcast, I kind of like went off of that. I studied more like the doubting part or like the unknown, right? And then also as I grew up in public school at first, and so not everyone, but like we were all little, we didn't really know that there was different religions. We just lived our lives. But like then as we grew up seeing like different faiths on social media, and people would be like, what faith are you? And I'd be like, the one in the Bible? Like, I don't know. And then I kind of realized that people describe faith like Seth said, like, I'm the Catholic faith, I'm the Mormon, Methodist, whatever. And so that's kind of how I grew up with those separated, though, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, that's how I viewed it.
Yeah, and I think, like, that kind of tracks with how a lot of people see faith.
Yeah. And
one of the things that we used as a resource, I guess, if you will.
Maybe before we get that really quick, I want to go back to this idea of unpersuadable.
Okay.
Because something you said, I think, will lead right into it really well, where you were talking about, kind of using the word faith or believe as a placeholder. Right? Like saying like, oh, well, I believe this. Like, I don't know why, but I believe this. And I think that traces back a little bit to what we were talking about with creed. Like, you need to know what your creed is and why it's your creed, right?
And why you chose it.
Why you chose it. Right, but that statement of, well, I just believe this is very antithetical to the entire concept, the entire definition of belief and of faith.
Right. Because
the definition is to be convinced by argument. So if you don't know why you believe something, you don't really believe it. And then I think that ties into this idea of kind of the negative, right, of unpersuadable. Because if someone is just like, if you're trying to, say you're having a discussion about, fundamental belief or something in the Bible, and you're giving all these reasons or whatever, like, oh, but the Bible says this verse says this, blah blah blah, whatever. And it really could be about anything. If you're just giving evidence in this discussion and someone doesn't take that evidence and then just says, well, I just believe this.
Yeah.
Like, do they really believe? Like, no, because they're not convinced by argument. And so that's, I think,
unless they're able to offer, also.
Right. But then you just have two opposing beliefs that, you
then you would keep searching.
Right, keep searching, or you keep going back and forth with the arguments, and then maybe one of you is convinced of the others.
Right.
Or maybe both of you are convinced further in your own beliefs or whatever. But I think the idea of unpersuadable is tied to this idea of not being convinced by argument. They are unpersuadable. And I think that's oftentimes in life what you find, is that those kind of people who have that attitude of like, well, I just believe this. Like, I just believe, I really believe it. Like, those are the people you cannot convince by argument. You cannot have logical discussions with them and be like, oh, but this. And they'll be like, that's a good point. Oh, but what about this? And have a counter.
Right.
You can't have those kind of discussion with these people. They are unpersuadable.
Yeah.
They are disbelieving.
So, and something, this kind of just came to my head, and I hope it works here, but I think when we think about faith or belief, we have to have all of the answers. And here's my example. I believe the sky is blue. Now, I do not fully understand why the sky is blue. Like, at the end of the day, I couldn't tell you the physics of how the sky is actually the color blue. But if someone were to be like, well, why do you believe that the sky is blue? I would take their hand and drag them outside and be like, look up. And so I think with our relationship with God, maybe, I don't know if this analogy fully works, but I think maybe our relationship with God really works the same way. Of like, I don't know all the ins and outs of why everything is the way it is, but, let me show you how God has shown up in my life in a very tangible way. And that's why I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know if that fully works out.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I don't know what to say it. Call it. What to say it.
Analogy.
No, like you're really getting down to the core, because you believe something because you have been convinced by evidence. You have been convinced by argument of some sort.
And some of it's personal evidence, like of things happening in my own life that seem far more than just coincidence. But then there's also people who share things that have happened in their life. And you're just like, wow, like, if this person's really telling me the truth, like, here's another example of God really showing up. And so it just confirms it.
Hi, do you have anything to interject?
I do.
She's ready.
No, I think I agree. I think when we become unpersuaded, like you were talking about, it's those people who go into the Bible with filters on, or with their, what's it called, convictions, or like their
preconceived
ideas. And so that gets really like bad and dangerous, because you're no longer listening or allowing the Holy Spirit into your life. And then in Romans, I can't find the verse. I was wanting to find a verse, and it had the word persuaded, like I'm persuaded by Christ or something. There's one of the verses in the New Testament, but one that I found was, it used the word convince, but it's like kind of along the same lines, that they're convinced by God. And I think when we think of persuade, at least when I was thinking about persuasion in our conversation earlier, I'm like, why would you want to be persuaded by men? But like persuade by God and his evidence, like you guys just said. And so
I would bet you that word convinced or persuaded is probably the same words.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't looked it up, but
I'm sure. But I think my phone's still an amplified version too. So. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts too, is just the danger of being unpersuaded. And also, you're never going to reach people if you go into conversations like you're ready to argue and you're not going to hear. Because at the end of the day, like, people want to be seen and heard. Like, even if it's like, okay, homie, like, this is the Bible. This is the text right here. but like they still want to be heard, and you're going to reach people and you're going to show God's character and like be able to be more of like a missionary, I guess, to God and an ambassador, like by hearing them out too. So yeah.
All right, cool. So let's go into, you're going to read some from this book a little bit, talk about the source, and then after that we'll talk about Hebrews 11 verse 1 a little bit, and hopefully use that to tie in to what we believe is kind of the complete concept of faith or belief.
What we have from the Bible to show.
What we have seen from the Bible, yes.
Yeah.
Study's not complete yet, mind you, but
yeah. Well, I actually had kind of a quote here from this book. So this book here is The Faith of Jesus by Herbert E. Douglas. And it actually had to go with what you were saying of reaching people. And I wasn't even certain if I was going to find it really quickly, and it just happened to fall to it.
Oh.
So faith is not genuine. It is not complete unless it produces a truly loving person. And I just felt like that was really fitting. What you're saying is because people do want to be seen, people want to be heard, and nobody likes to be hit over the head with the Bible at all.
No. That happens a lot, though.
And I find that the people who are the most, and this is what's really crazy, the people that I find in my life to be the most unbelieving people are the people who esteem the Bible in a way. Like, and they have all of these convictions and all these rules that they put on their life and think that they're, the holiest person around you. And then you try to come to them of like, hey, like I've really been studying my Bible and I'm coming to find this. And at least for me, like I'm looking for a conversation. Like even here in our podcast, like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm still looking for conversation. Like if someone was to jump in and comment or whatever, or write to us and be like, I was studying the Bible and I found this, like, and it
like, oh, cool, let's look at that.
Right, and it seems contrary to what you're saying. How do you, deal with that? Like, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. But a lot of times when I enter into conversations with these unbelieving people who would seem to be outwardly the most believing.
The most pious.
Right.
Yeah.
They are the most unloving people, first of all.
Yeah.
And then second of all, like, yeah, you can't have that conversation. It's just everything gets shut down. So that was a comment I wanted to add there. I don't entirely know how to go back to where I was going to to put this in. But we were talking a bit about the ways that we really casually use the word faith.
Yeah.
So
going back to kind of like a traditional definition of, or...
Yes.
Yeah.
There's 7 examples, and I'm not going to spend our time reading all of them. And so, but some of them on my list here is like, we've mentioned before, he's a Baptist. He doesn't belong to the Methodist faith, right? So we really use that faith as a body of religious information. I have faith that the technology will find a solution to the energy crisis before the world runs out of the oil and gas. Faith is not just, a confidence in scientific process. It's more than just trusting a painstaking effort. It's more than that. Another example here was, I never thought that I would get a brain tumor. However, my neurosurgeon will pull me through the operation. I have faith in him. So, we have faith in other people and their skills, but, what is that faith? Like, it's not, again, it's kind of how we mentioned before. It's like that gap of like, I don't really know that the neurosurgeon's going to have a good night of rest that night.
But I have faith.
But I have faith. Like, he's going to do okay for me. And it's like, he's still a human. There's still error. There's still faults. We have no idea. So I feel like faith is that filler word here in these examples, instead of being persuaded and being on a firm foundation.
Yeah, and I feel like that kind of goes along a little bit with like, the way as I grew up, I was never quite sure what faith was.
Yeah.
And what belief is like, I believe the sky is blue. And in my mind, I was always like, okay, well, I believe something that, based on evidence but I didn't really tie the two together. It's like I have a belief that the sky is blue, but I believe it's blue because of evidence type of thing.
Right.
But yeah, then faith always just was kind of like, people would give their definition of faith and all of this kinds of stuff, and it's like, okay, like I still don't quite understand what that is. Anyways, so I think that ties in very well. Are we ready to go kind of to Hebrews 11?
I was literally going to say, like,
comments?
no, I was going to say that, yeah, we grew up hearing a lot of people define faith in this big, ambiguous, complex thing, and the Bible literally has a definition in it in Hebrews 11:1.
Yeah.
So I think we should, what is Hebrews 11:1 say? I think we should read the verse.
You have your Bible? Let's go ahead and read it real quick.
Put on the spot. How fast can I find?
Hebrews.
No. Too far. My little sticky notes always seem to...
Ooh, it's a race.
It's
Who's going to get to it first,
gonna get
Kai
to
or
it?
Katie?
Me. I
Okay.
went.
Boom. All right, Kai,
No,
read
you
it.
can. Okay.
No, you got it.
Okay. Hebrews 11:1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now by faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Cool. It's a slightly different version than King James. What version is that one?
This is King James.
Oh, it is King James?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think
Yeah. Things unseen. I don't know. I have
things not seen,
things not seen.
Things not seen. Yeah.
the evidence of things not seen.
I'm gonna give up.
You can give up. Okay. All right. So yeah, let's dive into it just a little bit here. I want to preface with that, at least for myself, I am not completely done studying this verse, largely because the Greek, I don't know Greek. Like, I don't know the grammar, the structure of sentences, all those kinds of things. And so the structure of this verse does confuse me a little bit. So I need to do more research into that. But I think we can still pull our point from it that we're trying to get at here.
And I feel like I have so many things to say about this verse as well. So I'm ready to get into it.
Cool. Okay, so first of all, obviously Greek doesn't follow the same rules as English. So I'm going to go ahead and the order that you find the words in this verse, and I'll use that as the how do I say this? So there's an order in the Greek. I'm going to read it off using the translated words, just because it's maybe gives you a little bit of context. And
okay, you're saying that Greek puts the words in a different order, but you're going to read the English words in the Greek order.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm going to read the English words in the Greek order. Okay, so it's is now faith of things hoped for, the substance of things, the evidence not seen. So that sounds very confusing.
Yeah.
And so that's in part what I was saying, like, at least for me, I need to do more research into kind of the Greek structure, because the first word is a verb, now is a conjunction continuing the conversation, and then you have faith, which is a noun, and it's kind of the subject, right? But then you have a verb of things hoped for is how it's translated, and then you have three nouns followed by a particle and then another verb. And so I'm not quite sure what to do with all of that. But now let's go through with the... That's why I said it still needs study. So I want to preface that this still needs study. But we'll go through the actual, definitions, the Greek definitions of the words in order as well. So the first one, translated is, the definition is it is. It comes from the word, kind of the idea of I exist. So it's this idea of there is truth. There is something that is.
Okay.
The second word is just a conjunction to continue conversation. It's and, but, now, blah, blah, blah. So good and fine. Faith is, again, one of the words that traces back to the original word. The Greek word that's actually used here, the form is G4102. And it's persuasion or credence. And that's kind of where it ties into the idea from last podcast of creed. But anyways, moving on. The next word, which is the verb, is translated of things hoped for. the strict definition is to expect or confide.
And
So,
action, right? Is that the one?
This is a verb. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is one of the verbs in this verse, and it's the idea of to expect. So you expect something to happen or whatever. And then comes the next three words, which are all nouns. Again, I don't know completely what to do with that. But the word translated as the substance, the strict definition is a setting under, or concretely the essence.
The foundation?
Perhaps abstractly, foundation.
Okay.
Yeah, but it comes from the words that have this idea of to set something under, to support it.
Okay. I think
so
the
essence,
the book
substance,
adds
I think it
substance,
translates it well.
being sure of a foundation. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Then the next noun is, and this is where I think it gets really interesting. The next noun is of. It's translated of things, but the kind of the first definition you find in Strong's is a deed, as in not a deed of like a title, a deed of land. No, a deed as in an action.
And weren't you saying that this is the only place in the Bible that it's translated as thing?
I don't think it was the only. I don't know. I don't remember.
I remember you telling me that.
Should I look at it now?
I don't know. Why not?
Okay. We pull it up on BLB again. But yeah, I think what I was saying, at least in the edits at the core, was that most of the time this word is translated in other ways besides things. It's
and I know that it definitely wasn't the primary translation, and I really feel like you were saying that it was only translated as things one other time, or maybe not at all.
I think it may have been a different word we were looking at, because this one is different than that. But yeah, so this word is translated thing 6 times, matter 3 times, business 1 time, work 1 time.
But the root word
means
action.
The primary or the initial definition of the Greek is a deed, as in an action. It does include, by implication, an affair, as in a matter. You're dealing with a matter of something. By extension, an object. So I think that's the way that they have translated. The translators translated is using the extension meaning, an object, a thing, which is part of the definition. But I find it very interesting that this is the way they translate it, of things, when it's the word primarily is a deed, as in an action. And it comes, this is also interesting, it comes from another word, which is to practice or to perform repeatedly or by habit. So, at least in my mind, when I read this, kind of from the original language, the definitions, it's the idea of there is something that you practice, that you do on a regular basis, that you do habitually over and over and over again. And this word is the singular of that. So it's one of the actions in the middle of the practice. It is the action that you do over and over to create the habit. So I find that very interesting, especially when we think about, how we typically were raised to think of the word of faith or belief. It's like they don't quite go together. It's like, okay, how does an action or habit have anything to do with faith, and how does it have anything to do with belief? Because in the Bible it's the same word. Like this word faith up here in this verse could have been translated believe. It's the same word.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. And then the next few words, the word translated as evidence is proof or conviction. So proof kind of goes well with that idea of evidence. And then there's a particle, which is not, and it goes with the verb seen, is how it's translated. But the original is to look at. So the things not seen are not to look at, which the idea is not seen, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, the real interesting thing is this word that the translators chose to translate of things, when I feel like the primary definition seems to be an action as a part of or a singular of something that is habitual or practiced. So how does that tie in? Do you guys have any?
I'm trying to remember what I was saying earlier today on this topic now, because faith is I'm trying to remember now.
Should I read the conclusion that we were
Yeah,
coming
why don't
to?
you read that?
Okay, so out of all of this study has kind of come our understanding of what the Bible teaches is belief or faith. And this morning, I think it was this morning, where it kind of distilled down to a sentence in my mind. So that sentence is, faith or belief is that you are convinced of the truth of something, and so your deeds or your actions are permanent or consistent and in alignment with your creed. That's the idea of faith. And I think it really fits in well with a lot of the things that we're taught from the Bible. I think an example of this is, and this is where in the past my kind of misunderstand, or not really misunderstand, but confusion about what faith came from, is because if you say someone or something is faithful, what you mean is that it always does the thing. Like Old Faithful, right? The geyser in Yellowstone National Park, we call it Old Faithful. Why do we call it Old Faithful? Well, because every single time on the clock, and again next time, like every single time, it is faithful. And if we say God is faithful, it means he will not let us down. He is trustworthy, which I'm going to go back just a brief moment. That's another one of the forms of believe. One of the other definition is trustworthy or trustful. And so, the traditional definition of faith really doesn't make sense in that context. It's like, okay, so I have faith in something, but faithful is this other concept. Mm-hmm. Doesn't quite make sense. But if you take kind of what the Bible teaches about it, it makes perfect sense, because what you see is that if you are convinced of an argument, it produces actions which are habitual. And now you are faithful.
Right.
So you have faith. Your actions are full of faith.
Right. So like taking that verse, Hebrews 11:1, like now faith is the substance or the foundation. So faith is what gives you that firm foundation for your actions that are hoped for or expected. And so I think my example this morning was like, if I'm an alcoholic and I come to Jesus and I lay it to, at his feet, and I have the faith of Jesus that he has taken that burden and lifted it, and now my actions follow suit.
Yeah.
That is the thing hoped for, right? Is that I no longer have this enslavement. And so faith is that foundation of knowing that it has been done. And if if God's word has said something about me in my life, then I speak that truth over my life. If the Bible calls me righteous and the Bible calls me a child of God, then even if I don't feel it, and maybe in that very moment my actions don't speak it either, I have the faith that what God has said is far more important than what I believe about myself. And so I put that on and allow that to be my foundation, that substance, right? That foundation. And then my actions follow suit.
Yeah. And I think that goes along with the idea, another place in the Bible where it talks about faith, faith being dead without works. Like that makes that make sense. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if faith is this idea that it's something you do or something that you have, it's like, okay, well, yeah, like faith without works is dead. So if you believe something, and I think that goes back to the whole unpersuadable or unbelieving, because they believe a thing but their actions don't follow suit, and so their faith is without works and is dead. Mm-hmm. And so it makes sense.
Yeah. And James actually talks a lot about, faith and stuff, he who doubts or lacks
Yeah.
faith, right, is like a sea or like a wave in the sea tossing to and fro.
Yeah.
And you see that with people's actions. Like
Yeah.
they don't actually believe what God has said about them. And so one day they're, on a pulpit claiming something, and then the next day, they're down again.
Yeah, but their actions are then inconsistent with
Right.
what they say they believe.
Yes.
Which again ties into this definition. Like, if you have faith, you are convinced of a thing, and so you have habitual action that is in alignment with it.
Yeah.
Bam.
There you
Faith.
go.
That's what it is.
Yeah. 100%.
All right. Any other comments?
Nope.
No?
You guys hit it.
Okay, so just real quick as we kind of wrap up, I think this then means, actually, we shouldn't quite wrap up. This is a big topic.
Yeah, maybe we might have to come back to it.
Might have to come back to it, but I think we can do a pretty good justice, at least as it is for the moment. So this idea of faith of Jesus versus faith in Jesus. Because that's another thing that we traditionally believe is like, I have faith in this. I believe in this. Or something like that. But if you look at the biblical definition, that still doesn't make sense. You don't really have faith in something because that's only one part of the definition of what it means. But if you have the faith of Jesus, now you have something really interesting, because if you look at this idea of, so we call God faithful, right? Mm-hmm. That means he is full of faith. That means he is persuaded of something.
Yeah.
And if he is faithful towards us, what is he persuaded of about us? Mm-hmm. And that is the faith of Jesus, because that faith is what caused him to, give himself on the cross.
Yeah.
Right? And that was an action that was inconsistent with some belief that he had about us. And so then, if his faith caused him to give his life for us, and if we have the faith of Jesus, what does that mean in our lives? I don't know. Go ahead. You have thoughts?
I mean,
There's probably so much there that.
Yeah.
I just want to, at the very least, we want to touch on this briefly, kind of talk about it, and maybe we'll, go deeper in another conversation, another podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I really feel like the whole faith of Jesus could be a whole standalone podcast.
Okay, so let's maybe put that on the table. We'll try to have another podcast on that sometime in the future. To wrap up here then, how does this understanding of faith, of belief, how does it change the way we live our lives? How does it change the way we think about concepts found in the Bible?
I think personally, going back to what you guys were just talking about, what Katie brought up was or I guess both of you, is when you don't actually know what you believe in and you just kind of follow along with the wind, you'll never know. It's kind of like the sower and the seed or something. I was reading about that in Christ Object Lessons, and it was talking about the soil and stuff. I kind of forgot the whole analogy, but it kind of was an eye-opener to me personally. It was I need to know what the Bible says and what I have faith in, because when someone else walks up, or when the devil tries to use someone, right, like the serpent, and twist the words, you won't know and you'll just follow along. And then I think how it changes my, what did you say, perspective and how I believe or something like that, the question you just asked, is also not being so dead set that I don't want to hear out other people. And or not going too far to being that's what I believe now type thing. Is finding that middle ground of the Bible is my firm foundation. And so if someone brings something up, to go to the Bible instead of someone else or something other than the Bible,
right,
pretty much, to get my resource.
Yeah, and I think for me, the way that it has really radically changed my walk with God is the way in which I see the Bible. I think I mentioned it in the last podcast of seeing the Bible as a magical book that's been protected over time. But I mean, still yes, that, but also when I read some of these words, one of the things I did is I started reading through my Bible, and I highlighted things that were in regards to what God had said about myself in purple, and then things about God in blue. And so as I would go and I'd read over things that what God had said about me, and then even if I didn't believe it or feel it, I had, the faith of what Jesus is saying to be true. And so I would really, in times of hard times or good times or any time, sitting down and really reading God's word and applying it as this is to me, this is God's love letter to me, and what he said is true. I believe that he is true. I believe that he is faithful, and so I'm going to put that on.
Yeah, I think it has really profound meaning for, man, really like everything, because if you're dealing with doubt or feeling like a crummy person or whatever, right? Like the promises or the things in the Bible that you were saying that you started to mark out, what the ways that God speaks about us.
Yeah.
And I think that ties into this concept, because like I was just saying, he is faithful. That means he has faith. He's faithful towards us. That means he has faith. He has belief. He is convinced of something about us, and that causes his actions to be habitual, to be consistent, to be firm towards us.
Yeah, and I think
that's profound.
What we see in tradition, at least in like the faith that I was raised in, so funny, but
yeah, we still like use
I mean, we're just used to using that language, but yeah, we see ourselves as less than. And I'm just a sinner and I'm never going to be anything better than a sinner. Like, thank God for his grace, which
and his mercy,
which, I mean, yes, thank God for his grace and mercy. But when you go and you read the scripture, I started realizing like there's two different people here. You have the sinners who are blatantly rejecting God and not heeding his word. And then if you're not that, the other side here are who Christ and God says that we are his children and we're co-heirs with Christ and we're righteous.
And while we were yet sinners, he died for us.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, there was cognitive dissonance there. Like it had to be closed.
I think it goes to show like how powerful words are too. Is like what you speak over yourself. Or like if I keep telling myself that I'm a sinner and no one loves me, and that I'm like not smart enough, I'm gonna believe that.
Right.
Yeah. But like God says, like he says that we are worthy, we are loved. And so like if you speak that over your life, like you'll see like how you think about yourself, but also like other people too.
Right.
It starts to change. So
you see other people as loved by God, and even if you don't like them and you think they're horrible, you still see them as a child of God. Like, yeah, it just changes everything. Which really brings you back to that quote that I was reading about. Faith is what makes you a truly loving person, because when you have this faith and you read God's word and you see other people, you can't help but love them.
Yeah,
because you start seeing through God's eye, and
by beholding, you become changed, and then you begin acting with faith.
Yes.
Yeah, and faith from this side, because we've been kind of talking about faith from God's side, as in his faith being faithful towards us, and what that means about about us and about how we think about ourselves. From the other side of like, okay, if I am to be full of faith, and if I am to be faithful, if I am to be convinced of something and have actions consistent with that, what does that mean for large decisions in your life? Like maybe when things are uncertain, like how do you act? Do you go around in circles just being like, oh, I don't know what to do, being undecided? I mean, I think there's space for that, as you work through stuff, but I think eventually it comes down to people who are faithful eventually come down to, I believe this thing, and so I'm going to act on it. And now that is faith. And I think sometimes, when we talk about faith traditionally, we kind of touch on that, where, we give examples of someone who steps out in faith. Well, that's kind of the essence of what it is the reason they stepped out in faith, the reason they did this action is because they were convinced of something. Maybe it was God's faithfulness. They were convinced of God's faithfulness, convinced of his care. And so their action was consistent with that. And they were firm and they were full of faith. And so, it just all makes sense. But something I was going to touch on just really quick is from this side of if I am to have faith as a man, that ties very well into some of that topic of masculinity that we'll go into at some point. But one of the characteristics is to be very stable, to be immovable, and that's this idea of faith. If you have faith, you are immovable because you are convinced of something. Yeah. So, anyways, I feel like every single time we talk about something, it's always like, wow, that has profound ramifications for everything. And I feel like that is kind of going to be the mode of this podcast, hopefully, is that when we talk about things, it's like, wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's our hope.
And I also feel like these are things that we've been trying to distill down and understand for months, years.
At the end of the day, we are on a journey, right? We're still learning these things. By no means do we have all of this figured out. Like I said, this verse, Hebrews 11:1, I'm not done with a study on that verse because I don't understand why there's a verb and then 3 nouns. But what's that about?
Where I was going with it is just if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, wow, that seems like a lot, or I don't really understand. Yeah, I think that might make sense.
Fair enough.
No judgment whatsoever. Maybe listen to it again or sit down, get this book. It was great.
Yeah, you want to give the title and the author again?
Yeah, The Faith of Jesus by Herbert E. Douglass. Saying Yes to God's Love is the subtitle.
Yeah, and I feel like we haven't read this book again after doing this study. So
yeah, we really should just read it again. We really should
read it again. We found a couple quotes. It was like, oh yeah, like that's what we've been finding out. So far, it's like, oh yeah, it seems like a really good book. But don't just immediately be like, okay, this book.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to read this book and it's going to teach us everything we need to know about faith.
No. This book was the beginning of our journey, though, about, we were dating. So,
And so I think after doing some of this study, we need to go back to that book and read through it again. But anyways, all right, any closing comments?
No.
I think we've given a really good overview of the topic of faith.
Hopefully. If not, leave comments. Engage in conversation.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to us. This was TBG Podcast number 3. We don't yet know what TBG number 4 will be. Hopefully at some point we'll be organized enough to let you know what the next topic will be. But we're just kind of getting going on this thing, and our life is a little bit in chaos right now. So we are learning to practice faith.
Yes.
To practice actions that are consistent with what we believe.
But share, subscribe, and
and when we have it up, buy shirts.
Yes.
Hopefully that's coming soon as well. All right. Well, thank you once again for listening in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.